I think that a lot of investors are jumping on board now, which is great. And a lot of entrepreneurs are starting to look at this world.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gosberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 161st episode of the Shipping Podcast. If you are here for the first time, make sure you follow the Shipping Podcast on your podcast platform of choice and become part of the tribe that gets to listen to new episodes as soon as they are released. This is the podcast where you hear me talk with maritime professionals about the maritime industry, where we are and where we are heading. In today's episode, you will be listening to a young venture capitalist who is attracting capital to the maritime industry and looking for startups with ideas focused on transforming our industry. She is a second-generation ship owner and the founder and general partner of TMV. Her name is Marina Hadjipateras, and she's currently based in New York. I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, and thank you for having me, Lena. I'm excited to be here and speaking to you. My name is Marina Hadjipateras, and I am a general partner at TMV Ventures, an early-stage venture capital fund. We are based in New York, and we make investments in a few different areas, one of them being supply chain, logistics, and transportation.
And what is your background? How did you end up in the shipping industry?
Well, I've known the shipping world since I could walk and talk, I'd say. I've had lots of role models in my family who were involved in shipping, and we have an old family history in the maritime world. So I had a grandmother who I looked up to immensely and spent the summers learning about shipping from her, because she was one of the only women to really be involved in the shipping world. And so I knew from an early age that it was something important to me and something that I wanted to explore when I went into the workforce. And so after graduating college, I went to Kings Point and I got my STCW certificate before moving to Korea and working at the Hyundai Heavy Industries yard, where we were building an Aframax tanker. When I say we, I mean my family company, Dorian LPG, run by my father. And that was to get a grounds up experience in the shipping world. And so after spending some time in Korea, in the Philippines, working with the crewing department that we used, Magsaysay, I went and spent some time between Greece and London and worked at the different departments within our shipping company. And, I fell in love with the shipping world even more. And every different person involved, from, like I mentioned, the crew, the shipyard, the different departments on and offshore. I just soaked in as much as I could. And I joined the environmental committee too for Intertanko, for tanker owners, so that I could also work on moving things forward in the industry and with regards to sustainability and the goals that the shipping world was putting out there too.
And now you're an investor in the maritime industry. How did that come about then?
Well, it was funny. So I moved back to the US in 2014 because we were preparing to take part of our company that transported LPG, Dorian LPG, public. After we took the company public in 2014, I decided to stay in New York and work on private investments, because I started to get a lot of deal flow from founders and entrepreneurs who were engineers and technologists and trying to break into the shipping world. And through my experience and my history, I realized that I could serve as the bridge to help them connect to different people within the world and ultimately bring a somewhat older industry into a newer age and help them with efficiency, optimization, sustainability, emission reduction. And so that's when I started to think about maybe I should look into investing and helping to, connect people and bring new blood into the shipping world and new ideas. And so that's really when it started and when the idea came to me.
It sounds so interesting. I have the same experience, but I'm not a capitalist, not yet, because I live in Gothenburg and we have the entire automotive industry here. All the software engineers for all the different brands of cars are here. And also Ericsson's 5G headquarters in the world is here. So I get to see and listen to a lot of ideas, and I think, wow, I will learn this before the rest of the maritime industry. And I find it exciting. As you describe it, I think that the maritime industry has always been very keen on tech when it comes to ships, but not really for the rest of the business. Do you agree?
I do agree. I think that the industry has been keen on tech within the industry. And I think that working together and partnering with experts and outside of the industry has made things propel even more faster. Yeah. And so I think that there's acknowledgement that things can really improve. And I'm really excited because we're in sort of this new age, and everyone's jumping on board. Ship owners, like you said, technologists, everyone's sort of jumping on board now. But I think that in the past, there was if it's not broken, don't fix it, rather than we can improve. And now it's, even if it's not broken, there's a way we can do this so much better, and for the environment and for the shipping world. And now, transparently for the supply chain industry too, which, has really come to light over COVID. So I agree. I think that there's even more motivation now than there was before, but it has been there.
So why have we now become interested to other kinds of business? I mean, like, for instance, the financing institutions and for other kinds of industry. Why have we become the attractive one to everyone else now?
I think it has to do with a few things. I think that transparency within the industry has become necessary because of regulations that are being put out, and we're being held more accountable for different aspects of the business. And I think that allows us to think about ways in which we can improve, like I had mentioned. So we're being held accountable from our own industry, but also from outside of the industry with regards to, like I mentioned, sustainability. I mean, there's been such a push over the last 10 years overall because of climate change and, how things are affecting the environment. And if we don't, the shipping world, it's not a choice anymore. We have to care about this. And so I think that that's the change too. And also just with regards to the last few years, I think that there's just been a lot more access to the way things move around the world, and to being able to understand that, whether it's through social media or, different reports, or again, bridging those gaps between different industries and bringing them together. All of a sudden, people are thinking about, if I do this better, then this will become better. If I improve the efficiency of the way my ship is run, or what happens when I arrive at a port, then I'm going to get my goods faster and in better shape. If I digitize something, then I realize that it's going to reduce fraudulence on the back end, and you're going to understand where things came from. And so I just think that there's a lot more connection right now that's making everybody more accountable and understand this world a little bit more.
Yeah, and maybe I think also, if we are one leg of the supply chain, we can't be any less good than the other parts.
Exactly. And it's such an important, every leg is so important, but exactly, we can't be less important. I think it's just, to me, I guess, the word, it's a sexy industry, and people would say to me, it's the most fascinating and wonderful part. Shipping is, 90% of the way things move around the world. And so you can connect everything around you mostly to the shipping world. So I think that a lot of investors are jumping on board now, which is great. And a lot of entrepreneurs are starting to look at this world. Not enough yet. I'm really trying to look for more. And I would love to meet everybody and every entrepreneur who's trying to break into this world, or work with an entrepreneur with an expertise, and then, find a problem that we can solve together in this world. But it's an exciting time for the shipping world.
Do you think that the pandemic has also speeded things up? I mean, when it comes to tech and all of that?
It has, because we've seen the inefficiencies highlighted in, as I mentioned, supply chain and in other areas. And we've seen transparency within this too, because if things haven't come to us fast enough and we really need them, we're starting to wonder why, which in turn can go back to shipping we can start to find ways to improve that way. So I think the pandemic for sure has sped things up.
Has it also moved the agenda up to the C-level of the companies in the industry? Because that is what I see.
Yes. Yeah. I think you mean in terms of
decisions on digitalization or investing in more improved tools and things like that.
I think so. I think COVID has, and the surge and interest in sustainability and need for sustainability and the goals and the IMO 2020 regulations, all of that has highlighted the need for efficiency in this world. And so I do think that the C-level are listening more and making more decisions. And I mean, it's ultimately a way to be profitable, but there's also, and also a need for environmental improvement that they're listening to now, because they're not going to win a business unless they focus on both of those things. So even for us, we've changed for Dorian. We changed our motto to, it used to be safe, reliable, and trouble-free transportation. Now it's safe, reliable, clean, and trouble-free transportation.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the world needs to restart after the pandemic. So you need to think everything through once again before you restart.
Exactly. I mean, it's not just the small things, and it's not just a year or a 2-year fix. And this is, we have to think 50 years from now. What can we do now to make sure that 50 years from now or 20 years from now, things are going to continue to improve? And so you're right. I think the world does need to restart. And I do see like a big focus on that, and a big and more acceptance, which I think is important for.
Yeah, because for years I've been told, Lena, you are so impatient. It takes a long time to change things. And this is like a big oil tanker. You can't change the course in 1 second. But now we have seen things that have changed in a week, things that could take years before.
Exactly. I mean, as an investor, some of our companies, like you said, have accelerated in such a small time span, in what might have taken 5 years before. It's sort of when you're put in a situation and you have to make a decision, or there is no other choice, then it's an interesting way to move things forwards and accelerate. So I definitely have seen a lot of acceleration, digitization, and other areas.
We are an old-fashioned industry, and usually it's like, the people's business. I always used to call them the handshake generation. You don't do anything unless you have met and shaken your hands and agreed on things. And now things has to be done a different way because we can't meet.
No.
So is there a distrust between tech and trust? I mean, is there something there that needs to be bridged in a different way now?
I think that, like you said, virtually, there's more trust in the virtual world. There had to be over the past year. And, luckily, I think having a video too helps, just to be able to see one another, even if it's not in person. But there's more trust that's been developed. I know people who, like you said, would never do a deal if it wasn't in person. And we've had to bring on founders and invest in companies that we've, and some that we haven't actually met in person. But we've worked together so much virtually that, we've started to trust that process as well. It's just a change that has happened, and there was no choice unless you put, a stop on your business, but then you're going to fall behind.
So how do you see the future for shipping in general? How do you see what's your vision?
Oh, well, I just think that the shipping world is really going through a transition right now with regards to, as we mentioned, technology. And each entrepreneur that I meet has really been focusing on different aspects of ways to improve the industry, and the partnership that exists already between them and ship owners and different corporations and different sides of the shipping world. Those partnerships are going to become stronger, and there'll be more partnerships. And I think that will just really put the shipping world in a great position to be, leaders in kind of the sustainability aspect and the efficiency aspect, because it's not going away anytime soon. It just it needed a refurbishment and to move forward a little bit. And that's what it's doing. And I do think it takes baby steps. I don't think that things can change overnight. There are regulations and there are steps that you need to take, but each one of those steps is happening. So I'm really excited about that. And I think that there are enough people on board with the change in the shipping world to bring those who might be a little bit further behind up to move things forward.
So where do you see the progress? In which areas do you see the progress?
I think it's in the mindset of the shipping world. I come, from the ship owner side, so I can speak to that a lot. And it's in the mindset of ship owners that I see a lot of progress and openness to and acceptance of new technology, new people in the world. It's a very tight-knit industry, one, that you trust who you know, and it was sort of a little bit maybe of even sharp elbows, but now that's changed. And so the mindset is, let's make things more sustainable. Let's be more efficient. Let's bring in new blood. Let's look at what we have and try to improve. And that has changed over the past few years and continues to change. And that's where I see the progress. Let's care for our crew members. I think that's a big thing too, in terms of making sure that, you've got every aspect of this business is so important. And from the crew on board, who are literally the masters of they're commanders at sea. And then you've got, the onshore and commanders onshore. And just making sure that I've seen so many new companies that are coming up that are trying to promote crew care, or democratizing like the crewing process for hiring, or just really giving power to crew members and care. It's a big job that they have. It can be lonely. They've got a family at home. And I think paying attention to that aspect as well as others is really important. So there's a lot of great change that I'm seeing in every part of it.
That makes me so happy.
Me too.
I have one soapbox, which is, how will we become more visible to the general public? Because I think in the light of the pandemic, the seafarers have done such a great job. Mm-hmm. And they haven't been able to go home. They haven't been able to travel from the ship to home, or the seafarers at home has not been able to travel to the ship, which means they don't work and they don't maybe not get paid. So how do we become more visible? How do we make our industry more famous to other people than ourselves?
I think it's slowly happening, but it has to do with, on my end, what we're trying to do is really invest in amazing shipping companies and bring these to light all over the world and introduce them to other investors who aren't as familiar with the shipping world, but are very interested in investing in it and with supply chain and logistics and transportation. And I think that, so there's more interest there, which means there'll be more capital that'll go into the industry, which means things can get built out more. And I think that's a way that I really want to move things forward, which in turn will help create more companies that are focusing on seafarers or that are focusing on sustainability. And so I'd like to, we raise capital in order to invest in these companies. And I'm starting to really try to partner with every other venture capitalist, investor, angel investor company that is really focusing on investing in new companies that are trying to change this industry.
It's also a matter of recruitment. I mean,
Yes.
You are the next generation of ship owners, or the new generation of ship owners. But we need all the brightest people into our industry, and they don't know about us.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, recruiting, and I think that's the bridging the gap. Really, it's bringing those people into the industry. When we invested in a company called Nautilus Labs, one of the founders, worked at Google Maps and had the expertise to really make a difference in the shipping world, but didn't have the connections to it. And so one thing we did early on was put them on our ships and start to introduce them to ship owners. And the reception 3 years ago to now, and everybody knows Nautilus now, it's amazing. It was very much a question of, is this necessary? We saw immediately that it was necessary because they reduce emissions and they do advanced optimization. But now there's no question whether or not it's necessary, which is very promising because it's only 3 years that that's happened. And so recruiting really good people, recruiting seafarers, because the more we invest in companies that are going to care for seafarers, and the more ship owners and different corporations bring those companies into their corporations, then, that improves their life on board, and that'll be helpful as well.
And you, as a young woman, you are also a role model. I mean, did you have a role model growing up?
I would say my grandma was my role model growing up because she was in a boiler suit and just a really strong, tough lady in the shipping world. And she taught me a lot. And, there was nothing that in my head that she couldn't do. And she was all of our role models in this world. So I really looked up to her, and I would love to bring more women into the shipping world. And, we're more women crew members and just more women in general. And that's what we're looking. I am specifically looking for women who are building shipping companies. It's not a mandate for our fund, but it's something that I think is really important. And if what we're doing could bring more women in, then I just going to keep doing it. I think it's really important.
I do have a lot of listeners in Silicon Valley. I've realized that. So maybe you will get a lot of contacts afterwards. I don't know.
Well, that sounds great.
Do you consider yourself a role model now?
I would say, I think for, like you said, for the younger generation and younger women who are looking to break into the shipping world, or for people who are looking to invest in this world, I would happily take on that role because I think role models are really important to have. I still, have a lot to learn and do, and I know that, but for the younger generation, I'd really like to show them that the shipping world is amazing and so fun, and it's not one-sided. There's so many different aspects to it.
I usually say that you never meet a dull person in the maritime industry.
It's so true.
Everyone is a character in one way or another.
Yeah.
And everyone is they want to share their knowledge so easily, I think. So it's not what everyone thinks. We need to change that profile.
Definitely.
That the general public think that we are boring and old-fashioned. We are not.
No, I mean, there's from when I started and went to South Korea, and from the shipyard and everybody there who plays such a vital role in building the ship, and to the Philippines, where you have, the amazing crewing department who are supporting the seafarers, again, to our shipping office in Greece, which is half female, half male. So, we're really pushing to to bring in different people into the shipping world. But there's so many different aspects to it. It's really fun. We just need to work with different people to continue to improve.
We need to speak to people outside our own ranks, our own bubble.
Exactly.
We need to tell the world about it. We want to stand on the rooftops and shout about it.
Yeah.
Who do you think I should meet the next? Who would you be interested in listening to in the shipping podcast?
I just met a wonderful woman founder, and I think possibly a woman who's founded a company maybe at an early stage. I mean, I'm speaking to my industry expertise a little bit, but I think that, just seeing their vision of what can become of the shipping world would be really amazing, and how far they've come already. So I think an entrepreneur building a shipping company who's a woman would be wonderful. And she can then serve as a role model for other women to start thinking about building companies in the shipping world.
I would be happy to have her on as a guest.
Oh, wonderful. I will make that introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, Marina, for taking the time to speak to me.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I wish you all success with your further endeavors as a venture capitalist, and I hope to see you in real life.
Me too.
Thank you, Marina. I'm happy to hear that you also can see a change of mindset and that we are more open now. We still have a way to go, but at least we are on our way. I am currently working on an upcoming episode of the Shipping Podcast, where I, for the first time, will have 2 guests at the same time. I'm reinventing myself, and how to do that if not with a bang. I will be speaking to Captain Kate McHugh and Captain Thomas Lindegard Madsen at the same time. They have never met in real life before, so there will be something new for them as well. I'm so excited, but I would really like to know what you would like to ask Kate and Thomas. What do you want to know about them or from them? I think it's obvious that we will discuss diversity and inclusion, recruitment and the next generation, but please send me your questions to hello@shippingpodcast.com so I can include them into our conversation. The recording will take place the first week of May, when Kate is back from a short vacation and Thomas has signed off from the Venta Maersk. I will be patiently waiting for your questions. Please send them to me. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.